In this video, I'll teach you how to create an accordion using React and Tailwind CSS. On my screen, I have a React app and I have removed everything in the app.js file and I render a basic H2 element which you can see in the browser on the right. In the app.css file and in the index.css file, I have removed all the default styling and I have also installed Tailwind CSS into this project. So that's it for the setup of this project, and now we can go ahead and build our component. The very first thing I'll do is to create a components folder in the src folder, and inside that components folder we'll create our accordion component. Good. Now, before we get started building our accordion component, the first thing we'll do is to bring the data we'll be using to build our accordion, which I have called accordion data. Now, this is a simple array with objects. Each object has an ID, a title, and content. We then have to programmatically display this accordion data in our browser, and to do that we'll be using the map method. So we'll have accordion.map, and for each accordion item we would destructure the ID, the title, and the content. Also, for each accordion item we will return a parent div like this, right? And the key is going to be our ID. Inside our div, we would render our title inside the div and as well as our content in the div. So this is what it's going to look like. Now let's go ahead and render our content. We cannot see our items on the screen. That's because we have not imported the accordion component into our app.jsx file. So let's go ahead and do that immediately, and when we do that, boom, we'll see it in the screen. Now this video is going to focus a lot on the React features you need to implement and the logic behind implementing an accordion. So we wouldn't focus so much on making it look pretty. Nevertheless, we'll apply some basic styles so that we can distinguish between the elements on the page. And to do that, using Tailwind CSS, let's make our title a bit bigger. So we'll give it text, let's make it 2XL, right? And that will make the title or the heading much bigger. Now let's give our content a background of blue. Let's say BG blue 500. Let's set it to 500. Boom. So our content has been highlighted. Also, for each accordion item, which is the title and the content, let's give it a border. So we'll have it border, and let's make the border color red. Let's give it border red 500 so that we can see it, and we'll also give it a margin bottom of 2, that's 8 pixels. Very well. So now each item is separated from the other and we can distinguish them. This doesn't look pretty yet, but the major focus is the React features and the logic behind implementing an accordion. So by default, an accordion would have its content hidden, and unless we click on the title, the content won't display. So let's hide that content, and to do that, we'll set the height here to 0 and we'll give it an overflow Y of hidden so that that text markup over there would be hidden. Boom. we solve that problem there. So this is what a basic accordion would usually look like. And then when we click on the accordion, we want the content to be displayed, and when we click on it again, we want it to be hidden. To do that, we will need to store the ID of the element clicked in state. This is because the element clicked can be changed. So let's go ahead and we'll simply have const selected, which is going to be hold the ID of our selected item, right? And we'll have to import our use state so that we don't get that error. And initially we'll set the default value or the initial value to 0. It is very important to import your use state as well so that you don't get an error. Now, having done that, what we'll do is that we'll set an onClick property or prop to this title here, and we'll call an event handler. So let's set the onClick and we'll call handle click, which we are yet to create. We'll create it very soon. And this handle click is going to receive the ID of the accordion, right? So let's call it properly. Very well. Now let's create our handle click function, which will be like this: function handle click. Don't forget to receive the ID as a parameter, and inside our handle click we'll set the selected item to the ID we receive, like this. Now what we are going to do is that we have to use CSS to dynamically show the content, such that if the ID is equal to the ID of the accordion item, we'll set the height to the appropriate height. So let's use the style attribute for this one, and what we are going to do is we'll have height, and if selected is equal to the ID, then we will have auto, like this. If not, we will just have undefined. Boom. Now when we click on an accordion item, it opens up the content. However, when we click on the same accordion item, it doesn't close. We would want to close the content when we click on it again. To do this, in our handle click, we have to check if the incoming ID over here is equal to the previous ID held in state. And because this is based on the previous state, we can then use the arrow function to update our state like this. Now automatically the state updating function, which is set selected, will provide us with the previous ID which we receive in our arrow function, and we can now do that comparison. So we'll do previous ID is equal to incoming ID. If yes, we want to set our state to null, and if not, we would set our state to the ID, like this. Now let's refresh our application, and when we click on it, it opens up the content, and because it is already opened, if we click on it again, it will close the content.